Correspondence. Is that something that you had? Well, I just, I don't know why. Okay, we have an email dated October 4th, 2017, FOI request dated until 9/17. I gather you were going to address that.
Yes, I haven't had to deal with one of these before. Are these typically read out, or do we just recognize that we received it?
Well, you can do one or the other.
Sure. You may wish to refer to a person's report as the landowner.
So I guess, so I refer to the landowner?
No, as the
As the landowner, you don't identify
not to
the
name
person.
the person's
Okay,
letter.
Yeah, I'll just read it then. So, Dear Gordon, I've been in touch with the Office of Information and Privacy Commissions in accordance with Section 75, since you did not give me an estimate of the total fee before providing a response with the FOI information, which I received on September the 14th. As the applicant, I must not be required to pay under Section 1 FE. Therefore, I would appreciate if you would void the invoice dated September the 24th for $200, which I received September the 21st, 2017 from you by email, where you charged me for 4 hours of research time, which equaled 4 times 50 is $200. Please send me the documentation with confirmation of voided invoice. Also, regarding the missing 3 attachments to this 2 sets of UBID in-camera UBID minutes, please state the reason why those 3 attachments were not included. This information is also required by the Officer of Information and Privacy Commissioner. Those 3 attachments were part of the document and as such should have been included, supplied by a landowner from U Bay.
Okay, thank you very much for that. I assume that you'll be dealing with that.
Yeah, it's already done.
Okay.
I think it should be discussed here, though, any freedom of information request, there is always a charge for that. That's a standard process. So, and actually, the Union Prairie Improvement District has a bylaw that covers that. It talks about the costs that can be charged back, breaking it down into hours. So, in my opinion, if a person asks for something and it takes our administrator 4 or 5 hours of time, they will be liable to pay that. So it's an existing bylaw. Everybody here tells us how they research bylaws and they know them all so well. So it's very strange to me that somebody is not aware of this existing bylaw. And secondly, the cost of freedom of information requests. It's standard. I mean, I even know that when you ask for freedom of information, you're going to be charged, and you're charged before you receive the information. So I see no reason why we would not follow through with the invoice.
Trustee Allen.
Yes, with all due respect, Trustee Bitton, there is legislation. It's a legal legislative legislation and the FOI process that outlines what can be charged and what can't be charged. I'm by no means an expert, but I did a little quick reading the other night on it, and it appears that the first 3 hours cannot be charged unless I'm reading the legislation wrong. There's also to be no charge for electronically provided information that's available electronically for the first 3 hours. There's also provisions for providing estimates to people as to what the charges may end up being. So, but not being an expert on FOI, I would really hope that our administrator, when he gets time, will look into this and nail it down so we're not...
But we can't override our bylaws. Our bylaws
No, I think, well, I don't, like I said, I'm not an expert, Rick, but I do believe that the legislation would probably override our bylaws.
Well, I don't know about that.
Okay, Trustee Calder.
Yes, I can confirm that the FOI, Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act, that legislation absolutely does override union-based bylaws. It is a separate legislation, it's a separate body altogether, and it's legislated separately. And I know this because I worked for 20 years in the school district as a student support services and counselor teacher, and I know the FOIPA bylaws quite well. I agree, though, and we all agree, that we need, as a board, training on that, and that is something, but we are legally obligated to follow the rules as set out in FIPA, not our own bylaws. And there are very strict rules about timelines, there are very strict rules about what is released and what is not released, and there are very strict rules about the fees, including that the first 3 hours are not charged, including that if it is, that estimates must be given beforehand. So, and they are all written in there. They are readily available online, and they're all written there. So what we need to do as a board is, and I'm more than willing to volunteer because it isn't necessarily a board that has to be the person in charge of each elected body determines a person who takes on freedom of information requests, because it is an onerous task and it's quite picky. So I'm happy to volunteer. I would be willing to go for the training to do that, and because it is time consuming, but we have to follow the legislation.
Okay, thank you for that.
I would like to see maybe Gordon also just looking to talk to the ministry on this, because the other issue is there's the same 1 or 2 people all the time phoning in, tying things up, same people all the time. So it's a 3 hours, as far as I'm concerned, 3 hours to start from the first item, because we just don't have the time. It's like it's getting ridiculous, the amount of time that Gordon has spent on a lot of this stuff with some of the emails, the ridiculous emails that we get, and I really think we have to be respectful to our administrator, and maybe we can follow up. Again, you have the rules, but I think we should also follow up with the ministry and go from there.
Yeah, I firmly believe, everybody's got their opinion of how things work here. If we've got bylaws, and everybody here is such a firm believer in following our bylaws state that the person that asks for that information is charged. And there's a reason for that, where, if this is a very pertinent question and there's a lot of meaning to it, certainly, it has to be done and they're charged for it. But again, Gordon is he was working on Thanksgiving Day here, so there's only so much time. And I don't think the people in this room wanted to spend, approve our administrators spending 4 or 5 hours on things that might not be all that important when we have critical things to do. So the bylaw to me is what rules here, and I would request Gordon to go to the ministry and get a very clear and concise direction on this. And then I think in the future that this charge should be posted on the website so that we do not have to spend the time of giving somebody an estimate. We can't estimate how long it's going to take to answer some of these questions. So that's what I would like to see happen. And I don't know about the people in this room. Our administrator cannot be tied up for hours and hours and hours by the same people asking the same questions.
Okay.
Again, I
Trustee Kelter, please.
As stewards of Union Bay, part of our job is to ensure that we do not incur a legal case and to violate the Freedom of Information and Privacy Protection laws. We would be sued for that. So before we speak any further about which we clearly do not know,
Yes,
I suggest we research the Freedom of Information laws pertaining to what fees are charged. I'm referring to Freedom of Information requests, not general emails or questions that are brought into the office. I'm specifically referring, as the landowner's letter was in reference to, Freedom of Information formal requests. There is a process That has to, by law, be followed.
I think the ministry will direct us on what we do as they're in charge of our operations. So Gordon, ask them what the process is, and I would ask Gordon if you could report back to us at the next meeting exactly what is expected and what the criteria is and what the charges are, so that we can eliminate
It's
this.
all online.
Okay, are you free, perhaps when you, in your other duties, with your many.
No, this is important to me too, because,
Yeah, we should get
you know,
a,
I'm new to this, and I want to make sure that we get it right.
Yeah.
So I'll find out exactly what the scoop is, and I have been working with a lady from the Freedom of Information office with some other Freedom of Information requests that came in. One of them is 178 pages that I've been reviewing, so that I have to go through every. You know, it's like reading a book. So you think this one was 4 hours? This one's a lot more than 4 hours to read through all the information and disseminate it to see what can. So like these are taking an awful lot of time, and like some of the other trustees have said, we have a lot on the go right now, and I feel that some of the stuff on the go right now is pretty important with building our new water plant, you know, getting our new fire department going, and you know, all the rest of it that takes to run this district. So the Freedom of Information requests are important as well.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of balancing my time to be able to do everything efficiently, right?
And that's
So,
why I volunteered to assist in that.
yeah.
okay, so we'll leave it at that then. I just want to make a comment. I believe the governing body for FOI also allows certain bodies such as regional districts and local improvement districts to make bylaws governing freedom of information charters. However, we'll leave that with Mr. Mason, and I'm sure he'll come up with yes?
Yeah, who's the head in the organization? The head, that's what Susanna was speaking about. Each government, you're supposed to have a head that deals with the freedom of information.
Yes.
And it isn't automatically the administrator. In fact, it doesn't even have to be somebody on the board. And that's why it's not taking away any time from him if you appoint somebody else as the head.
Yeah, that's true too.
Well, we don't have that luxury.
No, you have to.
I'm sorry.
No,
Okay,
Both
yes, ma'am.
both of the ministry.
Excuse me, Chair Jakes.
Yes.
The landowner is correct that in terms of specifically freedom of information requests, any local government can appoint someone to handle those requests. She's absolutely correct in that. And that is part of the legislation, which is why we need to be really informed of the freedom of information legislation. It doesn't mean that the head of FIPA request is anything else other than that. That's just their designated job. And it's so that the administrator doesn't have to carry the burden of...
I understand that. It's anticipated that as we move along here, and a lot of these freedom of information requests will probably dry up, because from now on, we've had to, because of contractual considerations, we've had to do a lot of in-camera meetings. Hopefully that won't be the case anymore. So all the information that we will be producing will be available on our website, or we'll make it available to the public in whatever way we can. Okay? Yes?